Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a beautiful Tuesday. Thank you for committing to spend the next 30 minutes with me. If you're watching live, let me know where in the world you're watching from. Today, I was on calls with people from everywhere from the UK to North Carolina and some West Coast folks, too. So I absolutely love how international, global we all are here. So let me know where you're watching from. Do a little hashtag replay action. Let me know what you think if you can later on. And thanks again for being here in the Soulpreneur speaking community. So I thought at the top today would do something a little different. For those of you that don't know, I absolutely love tarot cards and they are one of my main tools for inspiration. I'll maybe sometime come on and do like a whole live on how I use tarot for content creation and like in my work with my clients. But for tonight, I thought it might be fun to just draw a card to set our intention as like we're talking through this training on building know, like, and trust. So just do a little shuffling here. And then I just like to cut the deck where I feel it. Take a second. Let's see what we get. Oh, we got the Two of Cups. She came up for me earlier. They came up for me. It's all about partnership, but let's read what the book says and see where we're at. So if you're like me, yeah, partnership, duality, when two become one, beginning of a partnership full of synchronicities. I love the Two of Cups. And also speaks to a relationship that like you might have with yourself, but all about partnership. I'm a Gemini too, so I am all about the partners. I think that's a great intention to set for us because what we're really doing today is talking about building the know, like, and trust factor when you're doing speeches like this, when you're on camera and you're really creating that partnership, like the card said, I should have kept it out, between you and your audience, right? So whenever you're getting on and doing a live or whenever you're doing a training in person, it's really the give and take, the communion even that happens between you and your audience. And so I'm so excited to share more with you tonight on the 3 things you can do and kind of some more about where they come from and to help you build that deeper connection and more fruitful partnership with your audience, because it's through that connection where the audience actually becomes paying clients, right? Which is what our goal is as business owners. First, we show up and we serve, and then we convert that audience into our paying clients. So let me share more with you about this know, like, and trust factor, because as you guys know, I was in academia for 8 years until I started my business 2 years ago. And as a communication scholar, we call know, like, and trust like the 6 persuasion principles. They go back to his name's Robert Cialdini, who's like the godfather of persuasion and influence research. And he's actually at Arizona State University where I did my PhD. So it's super fun. And the thing is when I got into the online space, everyone was always talking about, oh, you have to build know, like, and trust. That's how people buy from you. Know, like, and trust, know, like, and trust. And I was like, wait, Cialdini talks a lot about liking, and like trust is kind of an underlying current throughout his work. But I was like, where does this know, like, and trust even come from? And so one day I spent the time to research it because no one ever cites their sources. Whole other pet peeve of mine, please cite your sources, right? Like when you're drawing on credibility, it makes you come across just so much more credible when you're able to say where the research comes from. And so come to find out, know, like, and trust traces its origins back to this guy named Bob Berg. And if you've been around the online space for a while or in network marketing, you've probably come across this book. And I always forget the name. Yeah. So it's Bob Berg, Endless Referrals. And there's actually more to the quote than building know, like, and trust, right? We all use it as the shorthand, but the first part of the quote is even more important. So let me read you the whole quote. It's all things being equal. People will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And so then Bob goes in to some of the research that Cialdini's done around persuasion principles. And I'm going to define persuasion for you all in just a second. But let's talk about that first part of the quote that gets dropped off and so many things that I see online. And that's all things being equal. And so you have to have the expertise to back up what it is that you're helping people with, what your offer is, and like stand in that credibility and expertise and be able to deliver on it, right? And so I know this can like cause a lot of mindset blocks for some people, and in terms of us like starting to cycle through our limiting beliefs and like doubting ourselves and thinking like, oh, maybe we're not good enough. Like, am I enough of an expert? Like, if all things are created equal, like, how do I compare to others? That sort of thing. And I don't want you to go down that rabbit hole. Because your business is really separate from you, right? So you are enough in and of yourself, and your business is its own thing. So I know I've had to do a lot of work around like separating this and being like, oh, right, my business is my job. It's its own thing. My whole self-worth is not dependent on my business. And like, even if you're a personal brand, your self-worth does not change based on the number in your bank account, right? Like, that's my main thing I want you to know if you start triggering and being like, wait, Megan, no, other people might be better at it than I am, or whatever the case might be. Like, it's not a comparison game. It's just knowing that like you have to back up your expertise and be in integrity with what you bring to the table. And so I don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but I do want us just to acknowledge that there is a first part to that. And just having like someone know you, like you, and trust you doesn't automatically mean they're going to buy from you, right? They have to also think that you can deliver what it is that you're saying you deliver. Oh, thanks so much. It's so great having you here. I actually can't see your name because it's Annetta, of course. How are you? Um, Thanks so much for being here. So now that I've got my comments pulled up, and let's jump back on track, because what I want to talk about with know, like, and trust is give you guys 2 or 3 actionable tips for each one of them that you can walk away with today, knowing how to enact when you're doing these sorts of videos, when you're on stage, and how you can really form that partnership more with your audience, going back to the intention we set at the beginning. And so, as you guys all know, like, I have my 4-part speaking framework of soul, strategy, structure, and style. And so let's play around and see how those fit into know, liking, and trusting. Awesome. I'm glad you're doing well. So getting to know you, right? If I ask you on this live right now, what do you know about Megan? I'm sure those of you catching it live or watching the replay will be like, oh, well, I know that she used to be an academic, right? You talk about some of these things that I've shared with you all time and time again. And that's because how you get your audience to know you is just like how you get someone when you're starting any type of new relationship. You have to disclose information to them, right? You have to be the one that takes the conversation that next step deeper. There's a theory by Altman, not to get too geeky on you guys, but it's called social penetration theory. And it's all about the depth and breadth of the topics that you disclose determines the depth of your relationship. Right. So if you're married to someone, you want to be able to talk to them about all the areas at depth in your life. Whereas with a friend, sometimes we have friends where, like, I definitely have my business friends that I just talk business with and we go really deep. Whereas I have other friends that maybe, I'm trying to think. Most of my friends are business friends these days, but I do have some like yoga friends. We barely ever talk business together, right? We just talk about more spiritual and yoga concepts. And so they're just in this silo. As business owners, and especially as personal brands, we have to talk more about more areas and go more in depth than we usually do. And so some of this is this like being vulnerable. And when we talk about authenticity, in terms of like, again, we're talking about knowing people. And I think it gets thrown around online a lot like, oh, just be authentic, be yourself. And at the base of that is really being vulnerable and sharing when it's appropriate, like what it is that is at the core of who you are, so you can build that relationship with others. And so it's why in videos we start off with like, hey, how are you? Where are you from? Then you can strategically drop some of these things that might be like where you're from, more about your family, hobbies that you have, things outside of your business, and of course, highlighting your business too. But you want to give people the full picture of who you are so they know you. And quick other thing, two kind of like caveats here. The first one is don't present a fake self, right? I see people doing it online, and sometimes they'll get on a strategy call with me and come to find out like all of the stories that they're sharing on their social media, or parts of them, like they're just not being truthful. And frankly, I don't want to work with people like that. And there's some deeper issue there where you're presenting such a false self to others that's why you're not going to be able to attract clients. And you have to present who you are, right? And like be ready to go in and like do that work. And so this is where the second caveat comes up. Like you don't have to jump into a conversation and share all of the deepest parts of your soul, right? Like there are things that I likely will never share in this audience, like in this sort of format, because they're not relevant and they're not like useful, right, or productive towards accomplishing my goal. So you don't have to share your darkest stories, but you do need to be more in depth and like proportional to where your relationship is with the people that you're speaking to. So going back to dating, right, we don't start the first date telling every skeleton that's in our closet, but you better believe by the time you're at the marriage point, people really know who you are, right, and know what those like skeletons in the closet are. So a couple ways you can do this while you're on camera is first being strategic in what it is that you're sharing, and having those couple points of like things that areas of your life that you're comfortable sharing and want to work into your content. And then the second thing is to really personalize your background and show off your space. So like I just got a new bookcase back there, super excited about it. Usually you guys can see my wall over here. I have tarot cards up. I have, for June Soul Speakers, I do a little post-it thing every time. I've got some vision stuff. Like I really show off my space and show off my personality. So you get to know kind of more of the behind the scenes. Sometimes I do behind the scenes videos on how I'm recording these, or if I'm in the middle of the challenge and I want to show you guys something, I'll go behind the scenes. So I want to make sure that you guys are doing the same thing. Sometimes I see people just like speaking with a flat white wall behind them, and you don't want to do that. You want to pick something that's going to showcase your personality. So if it is like a classic, elegant, like white with maybe a plant or something, and you're like, no, Megan, that just shows me. I feel ya. But don't be afraid to like be a little messy. Let people see the like real you in terms of how you decorate your space and how you put together your speeches. So that's what I have for us all on knowing and building that in partnership with our audience. Let's move in and talk now about building liking, and then we'll talk about building trust. So when it comes to liking and like being able to have our audience like us, right? Which is kind of weird to say. But the thing that we have to remember about liking is that we like people that are similar to us in some way. And so this goes back to what I was talking about with knowing is if you're not disclosing information and sharing these tidbits of your life, like your hobbies, like your family, like where you're from, then the audience isn't going to be able to like you based off of anything, right? They might really connect with your message, but all factors being equal, right? Remember the beginning of the quote. If they like someone else more and they offer the same service, they're going to use that person or refer someone to them. And so we want to build that know, like, and trust factor because that's what keeps us top of mind when someone needs what it is that we offer. And so, again, share hobbies and things that make you likable. So, for me, again, this is definitely talking about like being a Gemini, which I know some people are very like anti Geminis. And that's always a fun thing to talk about, right? So, talking about astrology, talking about yoga. And something else that I know is what attracts a lot of you to me is that I'm just a very positive person and like am able to reframe things and put it in like a new perspective that you haven't thought about before or that sort of thing. And so being positive can be a trait in and of itself. And then a couple things that are even like on my wall that are just like core values of mine that if you haven't done like the work to figure out what your core values are, I really encourage you to do it because like my first one is authenticity. Like I like to get on here and be real with you all and like show you the behind the scenes, give you like whatever speech tips I can to get you up and talking about your businesses and sharing your message with the world because I truly, truly believe that the world needs what it is that wellness and spiritual entrepreneurs have to offer. Like the world needs the skills, the tools, the strategies, all of that now more than ever before. And you're uniquely positioned to talk to your audience about these things. And that is just like such a core belief of mine that I can't imagine not sharing it, right? Other things that and like how your values can make you likable. I'm just going to read off like my values. So, right, authenticity, creativity, perseverance, compassion, and courage. Right, those are how I live my life and what I try to make sure that I'm embodying for my audience. And so, a couple things that also help you be more likable and build this like factor when you're doing videos is being conversational, right? No one wants the stuffy professor. Even when I was a professor, I was not the stuffy professor. No one wants like that person to come up on stage and be like, oh, let me tell you all of the things. I feel like their noses are just in the air, right? They want you to be conversational. They want to be able to approach you, right? Like I feel like any one of you in this group could come up and ask me any question. Like I hope you feel that way too, because I am and like as a person approachable and like and it comes back to being compassionate and like empathetic is like I know what it's like to want to get your message out to the world and to not quite know how to do it. And so anything I can share that's going to get you closer to connecting with your audience, I want to do it. Right. And so by speaking conversationally, you're building that partnership with your audience so they know that they can turn to you and it's helping you build that likability factor. So that's what I have for you on likability. We've talked about knowing. If any of you watching live have questions or when you're watching the replay, let me know and we can do some workshopping now. The last thing is trust, right? So we talked about knowing, we talked about liking. Now let's talk about building trust. And the main way you build trust is committing and following through. And so one of the things I do after every strategy call I do with someone, and that's like the front end of my sales funnel, well, kind of the second step of my sales funnel, is I get them to commit to taking an action and tell them that I'm going to follow through with them. And you better bet your bottom dollar that I follow through and see where they're at. See if they got stuck making the outline they said they were going to, or got stuck getting on and speaking on camera, wherever that point is, because I truly believe that all of us have it within us. We have that self-efficacy to get on and speak to our audiences. And like, I want to help you do that. If you feel like you don't have the self-efficacy or like the inner belief that you can do it, or you're lacking like the know-how, some sort of skill. And so I make sure that I follow through, and I always make sure that I'm delivering really high quality content, right? Like, if I know something, I'm going to share it with you all here. It's not like you have to pay me $10,000 for the secret formula of doing, the best live ever. Like, for some people that marketing works, but that's not in integrity with who I am. And it's also, I think, where a lot of that letdown comes in the online space is, I think we're all guilty or had this experience where we bought something with really high expectations that it was going to solve our problem, and then it doesn't solve our problem, and we're like, oh wait, like, now do I need to spend more money to solve this? Or like, what? I know for me, I invested, I don't know, was like $50 or something once, and then what was supposed to be the best content calendar ever, and then I got it and it wasn't any better than a freebie I had downloaded a month before. And it was a really strong lesson for me, and making sure that whenever I'm investing in something, that I'm following that person and that I know who they are, and that I actually trust that they'll be able to solve the problem that I'm having, because they've shown up consistently. That's the key. They've shown up consistently and shown what it is that they have to offer in their expertise time and time again. So one of the ways you can do this when you're on camera, other than like following through on what it is that you say that you're going to do, is you build trust through your body language. So if I was doing this whole talk not looking at the camera at all, and like looking down or like looking over here, or maybe I had like crossed arms, I'm crossing my feet back here. Oh, I'm kind of low today, but my arms are crossed down here, right? That is all very closed off body language. And so you want to, especially when you're on camera, make sure that you're presenting yourself as open. You can do this by imagining the energy radiating from you is a first good thing. Sometimes I know people feel extra nervous when they're trying to contain their energy and like keep it small. You really want to have expansive energy. Come back on Thursday and we'll talk more about it for throat chakra Thursday. But the other thing is, eye contact with the camera is the number one thing you can do when you're on camera to build that trust factor. It's okay, right? Like, I look at my notes every so often. I'll look, at the wall behind me or something, but you want to make sure that you're returning and making that eye contact directly with your audience, and then holding your hands open, making sure that you're doing some body like some hand gestures, or just really staying open. One of the other tips that I think helps a lot, and I don't know if I do it enough, which is this like leaning in. I love it when people do it when I'm watching a live, and it really projects like ooh, I'm here with you. Like, I'm going to tell you a secret right this second and share it with you. So that those are some body language tips for helping people get to trust you. I see Esther's on. Hey, Esther, let me read your comment here. Hi, Megan. Yes, finally in the same zone. Speaking conversationally is what I need to improve to remove my layer to be more authentic. Yeah, and I think it just gets so tricky when we're so focused on what it is that we're actually trying to express. And so you have to just know and breathe your content so much is step number one to being able to like let that go and speak conversationally about it. And then at some points you just don't care, right? Like, when you know your content, when you've practiced it enough to feel confident with it. And like, one tip, Esther, that I'm not sure if we've talked about before, is you might try practicing the pieces out of order of your speech, and it can really help you know like what comes next. I know it seems counterintuitive, but if you practice like the third part of your body by itself, then and get comfortable with just it, and then you practice the second part of the body, or you just know your conclusion, and that day you're just really practicing the conclusion. Um, Working on the individual parts can help you breathe it in and get it like part of your system more, because you never, like, this is the other tricky thing I think with speaking conversationally, is you can't have your speech memorized then, and you have to give yourself that freedom to riff like I'm doing right now, right? Like I had no idea when I got on that I was going to be talking about this specifically today, but I love having the freedom to just show up. Yeah, we'll try that approach. I'm always stuck in my mind. I get it. Thanks for sharing, Esther. I really appreciate it. Because I know that it helps a lot of other people that'll catch this when they're watching the replay, to know that they're not the only one, and that it's something that we all struggle with at one point or the other. And so let me know how these tips work out for you. And thank you all so much for being here, because I really think that know, like, and trust gets thrown around so much online. And so today I really wanted to break it down for you and let you know that first, there's more to the quote than, oh, yeah, you just have to get people to know, like, and trust you, and then they'll definitely buy from you. Like, you also have to have the expertise to back it up, right? All factors remain equal. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And so if you're at the point where you're like, oh, maybe all factors aren't equal, like I do need to practice my content more, or, I'm developing my expertise in this field, that's great. And there are still people that you can serve, because you only have to like be one step further than the people that you're serving. So don't let that be a barrier for you. Just be realistic with yourself and make sure that you're being authentic with the solution that you're providing, and that it's true to you, and not just, like I think I've said and you said earlier is, yeah, like, oh, give me $10,000 and I'll solve all of your speech problems, or get you on a TED stage tomorrow, or whatever those marketing promises are that typically I find don't have a lot of substance behind them. But um, yeah, so that's that first part of the quote. And then we have that know, like, and trust factor, which is grounded in research. I talked about Robert Cialdini and shared with you all the persuasion definition. Let me share it one more time, because now I'm like, did I really share it? Because we tend to think of persuasion as a bad thing. And I've been writing a blog series on it before I switched over to doing these videos, but this one's going up on my website too, is it's really this ongoing process of shaping, changing, and reinforcing an attitude, behavior, or belief is what persuasion is. And so when it comes to the know, like, and trust factor, first, when someone gets to meet you, when you're shaping their opinion and getting them like comfortable with the idea, right? Like, this is something I work with. I have to work with on like the marketing end of my work, is most people have never thought about having a speech coach. They're like, oh, wait, what? Like, I get the opportunity to shape their opinion on what a speech coach is and what they can help them with. It's super fun, right? And probably for a lot of you all, it's, oh, what is that attitude, behavior, or belief that I get the chance to shape? For other people, you're more focused on that reinforcing side, right? Where someone already believes that like weight loss is a good thing. They're just not sure how to get there. So you're reinforcing behaviors, and then you have to maybe change their behavior, like their actual behaviors. But that belief part that like, oh, I can reinforce it, is strong. And when it comes to bring it full circle back to know, like, and trust, what we have to keep in mind is that reinforcing and showing up consistently and making sure that from week to week and month to month you're consistent is how you're going to reinforce their beliefs about you and the skills and services that you bring. Esther's asking if I could do a future training on impromptu speaking. Yeah, I'll add that into the mix for these new Tuesday topics that I'm doing. Great suggestion, because yeah, impromptu speaking is so fun and important. So more to come on the definition of persuasion, but do know that changing people's behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs is the hardest thing, right? When we're all like, oh, I just want to change a mindset or whatever the case might be, shaping and reinforcing so much easier than when someone is trying to change one of these things. And you can't change them. They have to be receptive. And like another one of these trainings, I'll walk you guys through the theory of change that it's, first it's like even this precognition stage where they didn't even know that this was a thing they wanted to work on in life. And then they get to thinking about change. And then if their attitude, social norms, perceived behavioral control, like if they think that they can change, it's the, not academic way of saying it, then they'll maybe do it. And then the change actually happens. And then keeping change going for a sustained period. So this is why change is the most complicated. But shaping, reinforcing are really what come into play with know, like, and trust. So great suggestion for a topic, Esther. If anyone else has suggestions for topics for these Tuesday trainings, let me hear them. I love coming on and doing these, and it's my pleasure. I really like this new format. I'm loving doing them. So I will be back on Thursday with Throat Chakra Thursday to talk more about friending our public speaking fear and overcoming anxiety or any of these limiting beliefs that we have about public speaking, and more speaking from the soul. So I'll see you all then. Thanks so much for being on here with me. Bye-bye.